June 1st, 1944. Pas de Calais. Inside a gray stone villa turned military outpost, Oberstleutnant Franz Köhler adjusted his monocle and unfolded the latest reconnaissance report. Through his open window, he heard gulls from the channel. Far off, the low rumble of distant artillery. But here, in his office lined with intercepted Allied chatter, all was calm, calculated. "The Americans are amateurs," he muttered, circling a position on the map. "They mass everything in plain sight." Outside Dover, their movements had been bold, even theatrical. Barracks mushroomed overnight. Landing craft gathered like fish. Tanks parked in neat rows, canvas draped to protect from rain. "They want us to see them," Franz laughed. "Let them come to Calais. We're ready." He poured lukewarm coffee. He didn't know. What he saw wasn't real. Not a single tank, not a single man, just air, shadows, and lies. Weeks earlier, inside a damp corridor beneath Chateau de Caudry, Franz Köhler traced red strings across a map pinned with thumbtacks. Radio intercepts, spy reports, Luftwaffe flyover photographs. Each one pointed to the same conclusion. "The invasion is coming to Calais," he told his superior, General Erich Marx, "and it will be led by Patton himself." Marx didn't look up. He was carving a piece of apple with a bayonet, the dull crunch echoing off stone. "Patton?" he asked. Köhler nodded. "The Americans have no better field general. And this first U.S. Army group they've formed, it's enormous. Reports say nearly 150,000 men stationed near Dover, hundreds of tanks, constant radio chatter, infrastructure being laid by the hour." He paused. "It must be the main assault." Marx chewed, swallowed. "Good. Let them waste their blood against our bunkers." The German 15th Army dug in, fortified machine gun nests, laid fresh mines, reinforced beach defenses across Pas de Calais. SS Panzer divisions were ordered north, reserve units repositioned to the region. Every fiber of the German High Command's logic screamed that Calais was the most direct route, the shortest crossing from England, best roads inland, closest to Belgium, the natural corridor. And now, Allied deception made it look even more obvious. In England, the deception had a name: Operation Fortitude South. From the skies, it looked flawless. From the ground, it looked busy. From the radio, it never slept. Field reports from German agents in London confirmed everything they wanted to believe. A new headquarters in Kent. American accents shouting orders. General George S. Patton, the American Guderian, seen inspecting units near Folkestone. A spy even saw him urinate behind a barn. But what the Germans didn't know was that the tanks were inflatable. The soldiers were actors. The radio messages were pre-recorded loops. And Patton? He wasn't commanding any invasion force. He was a decoy, paraded around like a theater prop in uniform. The British called it the Ghost Army. The Americans called it Unit 603. To the Germans, it was the tip of the Allied spear. Inside his office, Franz Köhler compiled it all into a final report. FUSAG, 1st U.S. Army Group, to lead main assault. Dover to Calais. High likelihood. Normandy activity remains diversionary. He signed it, stamped it, filed it. Then, as an afterthought, he smiled and wrote one final sentence. Hitler will be pleased. He didn't know that while he wrote that sentence, 100,000 real Allied troops were boarding ships, bound not for Calais, but for the beaches of Normandy. June 2nd, 1944. Over the English Channel, a Messerschmitt Bf 109 shuddered in the crosswind as Oberleutnant Hans Felder snapped photographs through a belly-mounted camera. He flew low, beneath radar, over the coast near Dover. As the shutter clicked, he caught glimpses between clouds, rows of Sherman tanks, dozens of landing craft, encampments buzzing with life. But something felt off. Later that night, inside a dark room in Calais, he developed the film. Kohler stood beside him, arms crossed. The images appeared, one after another, on slick photo paper. Then Felder spoke, voice low. "Something's wrong." Kohler looked over. "These tanks," Felder pointed, "they all face the same way. No tread marks behind them. And here, this one," he leaned closer. "It doesn't cast a shadow." Kohler scoffed. "Cloud cover." "No, the sun's here." Felder tapped the margin. "Look at the tents. Everything else casts shadows. This doesn't." Back in headquarters, Kohler brought the photos to the map room. He was met with smirks. Major Lang, an artillery officer, leaned back in his chair. "Maybe the English forgot how shadows work." Laughter echoed off the stone walls. Franz forced a chuckle. "Perhaps they're just clumsy?" Still, he stared longer than usual at the image. A tank that didn't sink into the earth. No weight, no dust, no shadow. It clung to him like a splinter. A week earlier, a junior cryptographer named Wilhelm Roth had raised another oddity. "Sir, the American radio traffic. It's perfect. Too perfect." Kohler raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They're transmitting formations, logistics, drills. But the timing, it's looped. The same message plays every 90 minutes with identical pauses, identical stutters. It's staged." Kohler waved it off. "Repetition is discipline. Or maybe you're hearing things." But Roth didn't look convinced. "It feels like a script." By June 3rd, reports from Normandy were minimal. Fewer troops, less activity, sporadic movement, too quiet. But Franz didn't question it. Everything still pointed to Calais. And when the Abwehr wants to believe something, it does. Outside his window, gulls cried again. The sky was darkening. Distant thunder rolled. Or was it artillery? He turned away from the map. His coffee had gone cold. The photo lay beside his hand, a tank that cast no shadow. He slid it into a folder without a word. June 4th, 1944. 03:15 hours. Static hummed inside the Abwehr listening post, outside Boulogne-sur-Mer. In a concrete bunker buried beneath the earth, radio operators sat hunched over headphones, pencils twitching against yellowed logbooks. A coded message crackled in again. "Alpha Sector, Company B, load landing craft, refuel, and stage for embarkation." Then silence. Exactly 94 minutes later, it came again. Same voice, same cadence, same hesitation before refuel. Not a stutter, a recording. Wilhelm Roth stood over the logbooks. His hands were shaking. "They're looping it," he whispered to his superior. "It's not a real transmission. It's performance." Captain Meyer raised an eyebrow. "So?" "They're faking army movement with scripts," Roth continued. "Even the Morse traffic is patterned. Same syntax errors, same timing. They're simulating traffic, massive traffic, but none of it reacts to external variables. It's all noise." Meyer's mouth tightened. "You're suggesting they're pretending to have an army?" "No," Roth said. "I'm suggesting they don't have one there at all." The report reached Kohler before breakfast. He read it twice, expression unreadable. Outside, rain began to fall, thin streaks across the office window. He tapped the file against his palm. Could it be? Could the Allies be this creative? He shook his head. No, there were photos, agents, visual confirmation. General Patton himself was there. The Americans might be naive, chaotic, but not deceptive at this level. Besides, Patton wasn't an actor, was he? Later that day, a courier from Paris delivered a report. Patton not seen in field command capacity since April. No known chain of command activity. No operational order signed. Franz felt a chill, not from the rain, but from something deeper. Still, he dismissed the courier with a nod. Even a lion rests before it pounces. That evening, in a pub in Inflatable, Köhler met with another Abwehr asset, Agent Halder, embedded in London. The man wore an overcoat soaked at the cuffs and carried a camera case. Franz leaned in, lowering his voice. "What did you see?" Halder lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "I saw tanks, but I heard laughter." Köhler frowned. "They were inflating them, with air. Children's balloons painted green. One collapsed in the wind. They picked it up, like laundry." Franz didn't speak. He couldn't. Halder continued, almost apologetic. "And the soldiers, they carry no rifles, only clipboards. Artists, set designers, and yet they march." That night, Franz walked alone to the cliffs above the channel. The wind howled. Rain lashed across his face. Below, the sea swelled with storm surge. Behind him, radio towers still pulsed with signals. Reports still clattered from teletype machines. The Ghost Army was still moving. But now, he wasn't sure where the ghost ended. And the real war began. June 5th, 1944. A man in a gray trench coat hunches beside a public telephone booth in London's East End. Rain beads on the glass. He dials a secure line, code 9. His voice is quiet, shaken. "I touched the tank," he whispers in German. "It moved." Back in Calais, Franz Köhler leans over a dossier labeled FUSAG. The latest film reel clicks in the projector behind him. Black and white images flicker on the wall. Tanks, trucks, barracks. But then freeze. Frame 213. A British officer strolls beside a line of Sherman tanks. The wind gusts. One tank ripples. The canvas canopy lifts slightly. Underneath, inflated seams, barely visible. The kind sewn into weather balloons. Franz narrows his eyes. Another frame. A supply truck, painted shadows across its undercarriage, clearly two-dimensional. He plays the reel again, this time slower. This time, everything cracks. In a separate report, a field agent notes, "Patton has not issued a single operational command in 3 weeks. He merely inspects troops, rarely speaks." Locals refer to his presence as symbolic. The illusion begins to collapse. At 22 hours, the Abwehr sends an emergency cable to Berlin. Possibility of large-scale deception. FUSAG may be diversion. Normandy must not be ignored. No reply. Franz stands by the window, cigarette between fingers. Thunder rolls in the distance. Rain blurs the lights across the channel. And somewhere off the coast of Portsmouth, 100,000 Allied troops are boarding real ships for a real invasion, heading not toward Calais, but to Normandy. June 6, 1944. 04:15 a.m. Coastal sirens wail. A gray dawn bleeds across the English Channel. Franz Köhler jolts awake to the sound of boots on wet stone. An adjutant bursts through the door. "Sir, Normandy. They've landed in Normandy." Köhler stares at him. "No, that's the feint. FUSAG is the real thrust." The adjutant hesitates. "Sir, they're landing 5 divisions. Paratroopers. Naval bombardment. It's not a diversion." In minutes, maps are unfolded. Pins are yanked from Calais and jammed into Normandy. Reports spill in like fire. Bayeux breached. Airborne near Sainte-Mère-Église. Gold Beach under artillery fire. Franz sprints to the radio room. "Where is FUSAG?" he barks. The operator shakes his head. Still transmitting, still active, still pretending. For a moment, Franz freezes. Then he sees it, not in words, not in numbers, but in art. The entire performance was a scripted stage. Radio traffic, dummy tanks, painted shadows, and Patton, not a general, but a prop, a living symbol, held in reserve to anchor their lie. On the desk lies a new aerial photo, a full view of a Fusag encampment. Zoom in, the tanks are bulging at the seams. One lies deflated near a hedgerow, collapsed like a child's party balloon. A jeep has only 2 tires. The rest are painted on. And the soldiers, some carry easels, others drag cables. Not an army, a film set. Franz drops the folder. He looks to the wall, the giant map of France marked with dozens of pins. Each pin now a lie, each decision a mistake, each hour lost, a death. By midday, the German 15th Army still waits near Calais, unmoved. High Command refuses to believe Normandy is real. Hitler had ordered it. Calais is the main objective. No one dares disobey. Köhler slams his fist into the desk. "We were chasing ghosts," he mutters, "and they sent their real army through the back door." That night, he walks the corridor alone. The walls whisper. They didn't overwhelm us with firepower. They didn't outfight us. They out-imagined us. June 7th, 1944. A stiff wind howls over the bunkers of Pas de Calais. Rain pounds the sandbags. The soldiers wait, staring out at an empty sea. No invasion, no enemy, no Patton. Just waves, rolling, mocking, indifferent. Inside headquarters, Franz Köhler watches the phone. It hasn't rung in hours. Every division commander still clings to the belief Normandy is a feint. Berlin refuses to reposition. The 15th Army, 15 divisions, sits idle, 200 kilometers from the largest amphibious assault in history. Köhler paces the corridor. A junior officer approaches with trembling hands. "Sir, Field Marshal Rundstedt requests confirmation. Is Calais still the expected objective?" Franz doesn't answer. He simply hands the officer a photo, the same one from the Spy in London. A deflated tank, canvas flapping in the wind, a stagehand with a wrench. The officer stares. "This is what we trusted," Köhler says. "This is what we built our defense plan around." Meanwhile, in Normandy, American troops have secured multiple beachheads. British and Canadian forces push inland. Paratroopers hold vital crossroads. And Hitler still refuses to believe it's real. "They are tricking us. Patton will land at Calais," he insists, even as the bodies pile up, even as towns fall. By June 9th, General Marx is dead, killed near Bayeux. Rommel begins to question Berlin's orders. But the damage is done. The illusion held long enough for the Allies to pour through the breach. Long enough for the Reich to realize it bet everything on a ghost. Franz lights a cigarette with shaking hands. He looks at the map one last time. The pins at Calais are still there, bloodless, untouched, irrelevant. He leans over and pulls them out, one by one. The room is quiet. Only the wind and the crackle of the radio remain. On the frequency once filled with Fusag chatter, there is silence. Not static, just silence. Months earlier, England. A cow pasture outside Dover hums with activity, not tanks, but air compressors. Canvas flaps. Spray paint cans rattle. Broadway set designers crouch over stencils. One man folds a rubber Sherman tank with practiced ease. Welcome to the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. Codename, Ghost Army. Corporal Arthur Shillstone, a 19-year-old art student from Brooklyn, smears black pigment under his eyes. Across the field, Dozens of fake tanks inflate like parade floats. At night, loudspeakers blast recorded commands. Hold formation. Move Company B to Sector 3. Fuel dump in progress. All of it scripted, all of it fake. Behind the facade, technicians run cables to mobile radio trucks. Inside, linguists with perfect German accents send false chatter. American actors pose as officers in pubs, leaking secrets to staged informants. One soldier jokes, "We're not soldiers, we're magicians." Nearby, a flatbed truck arrives. It's cargo, a life-sized wooden landing craft, complete with painted rust, sound effects, and ropes that go nowhere. Even the tire tracks leading into camp are faked, pressed into mud by wooden rollers. The mastermind, Colonel Billy Harris, a former ad executive from New York. His belief, if the enemy sees what they expect, they won't look deeper. They didn't. At the center of it all stands General George S. Patton, walking, posing, waving, a lion on a leash, stripped of command after slapping a soldier in Sicily, now recast as the face of an illusion. Every step he takes near Dover strengthens the lie. And thousands of miles away, in Calais, Franz Köhler stares at photos of it all. He saw the smoke. He heard the radios. He counted the tanks. And every single one was a ghost. June 10th, 1944. The war is no longer a game of maps and guesses. It's a flood, a breach that cannot be undone. Franz Köhler sits alone in his office. The light is dim. Outside, the Channel wind batters the shutters. On his desk lies a letter, intercepted from a captured American operative during a skirmish near Calais. Scribbled in pencil, stained with rain, addressed simply, "To my father, New York." Franz reads it again. They think we fight with bullets, but the real weapon is belief. We built an army that didn't exist. We gave it names, faces, habits. And then we let your spies watch us. We didn't hide the truth. We wrapped it in confidence, so they'd never look deeper. You wanted Patton to lead, so we gave you Patton. You feared Calais, so we showed you Calais. And you believed. Not because we tricked you, but because you wanted to be right. That's how the ghosts won. Lieutenant Douglas Grant, 23rd HQ, Special Troops. Franz lowers the letter. His hands are cold, not from the rain, but from what the words reveal. It wasn't radios. It wasn't tanks. It wasn't even Patton. It was desire. They fed us what we feared most, and we consumed it like gospel. Across the wall, maps are curling at the corners. Dozens of pins removed. Normandy is no longer a rumor. It's a blood-red fact. He thinks back to the cryptographer, Roth, to the Luftwaffe pilot with the shadowless tank, to the courier who whispered about fakes and was ignored. Each warning dismissed. Each voice drowned by certainty. He had believed in the power of order, of logic, of predictability. But the Americans played with chaos. They painted lies on canvas, then set it on fire, knowing we'd watch the flames, not the hand that lit them. Franz stares out the window. On the horizon, thunderclouds gather over the Channel, and beyond them, real armies now move without masks. He picks up the letter again. There's one sentence he reads twice. We didn't beat your soldiers. We beat your assumptions. June 12th, 1944. 060 is ours. The war room is silent. No boots shuffle. No voices bark orders. The only sound is a slow, deliberate tearing. Franz Köhler pulls down the wall-sized invasion map, section by section, as if dismantling a cathedral made of lies. The coastline of Calais comes off first, then the strings, then the pins. Each tack leaves a puncture in the plaster wall. Each hole, a ghost. An officer enters, nervously clearing his throat. Orders from Berlin, sir. Hold current positions. Calais remains a priority. Franz turns. There is no army at Calais. The officer opens his mouth, closes it. He looks to the stripped wall, sees only void. Outside, soldiers dig new trenches, pointless lines in the wrong direction. Convoys roll north, too late, too slow. Inside Franz's office, the floor is littered with torn reports. He sifts through them, photographs, sketches, handwritten memos, each marked with the same fatal phrase, confirmed, primary assault at Calais. He picks one up, stares at it. It shows Patton standing on a ridge, inspecting troops. Only now, Franz sees the truth. The shadow beneath Patton doesn't match the sun. A trick of angles, a staged photo, a man playing a role. And Franz? He applauded the performance. He thinks back to a day in early May, when a courier delivered photos of inflated tanks and dubbed radio transcripts. He had laughed then. He doesn't laugh now. He walks to the window. The channel is quiet, but behind him, Normandy burns. Smoke spirals into the French sky. Trucks unload tanks that are very real. Men die for every mile gained. This is no play, no illusion. It is war. And we missed it. He speaks aloud to no one. We had every warning, every clue, but we saw what we wanted and called it truth. He reaches into his desk, pulls out the photograph again, the tank with no shadow. He folds it, slowly, carefully, precisely, and places it in the waste bin. Then lights a match. June 14th, 1944. A heavy dusk settles over Pas de Calais. The ocean breeze smells of rust and salt. The beaches are empty, immaculate, untouched by shell or boot. And in a war room now abandoned, Oberstleutnant Franz Köhler sits by candlelight, coat still buttoned, staring into the orange flicker. His hands are stained with ash, from reports, maps, photographs he burned one by one. Not out of rage, but shame. Behind him, the echo of jackboots fades. The command staff has moved south. Normandy bleeds by the hour, but Franz remains here, alone with the truth. The phone lines crackle with updates from a different world. Caen fallen. Air superiority lost. Patton still in Kent, still playing his role. The illusion continues, but only for ghosts. On his desk sits a final report, unsigned. It's blank beneath the header. He doesn't know what to write. What do you say when the enemy defeats you with paint and plywood, with timing and theater, with art? He lights another cigarette. The flame dances. He remembers his first day in military intelligence. 22, bright-eyed, full of theories. He believed in hard logic, steel numbers, and iron command. But that's not how he lost. They didn't outgun us. They out-imagined us. Somewhere in London, an American set designer rolls up a canvas tank and jokes about returning to Hollywood. Somewhere in Normandy, real men fight and fall. Real tanks roar. And somewhere in Washington, a general signs a logistics order that moves more fuel in 1 hour than Germany can muster in a week. Franz exhales smoke and silence. The walls around him once mapped the war. Now they're bare. He whispers, "We fought a mirror and were destroyed by our own reflection." He stands, puts on his coat, straightens the collar. The war has moved on. It no longer needs watchers like him. Before leaving, he turns back, one last glance at the wall where the fake army once lived. And for the first time, he sees it clearly. The war was lost before a single shot was fired. Fade to black. Soundtrack ends. No words, no credits. Just silence.